walk in and take a report, and if the resident says, hey, would you mind turning your camera off, I should be able to do that.
I think that you guys should be allowed to bring the camera in someone's home with one caveat. If you would clearly explain and make it a matter of policy that's enforced by, admonishing by their superiors, of explaining to people what their Miranda rights are. Specifically, your right to remain silent, and specifically anything you say can and will be used against you in court. If those were actually enforceable, if there was some kind of way to admonish officers for not explaining to people those rights before the camera is brought into their
So let me see if I understand. You're saying that if I walk into to interview a victim, I need to advise them of their constitutional rights before I begin speaking with them?
If you're going to be recording every word they say, absolutely, because you are an officer of the court and everything that's said to you and documented can be used as evidence against them in further crime, so absolutely.
Okay.
That goes back to election witness too.
So, let me get a parameter straight first. In the state of Oregon, in the city of Portland, do I have the right to refuse to submit my license to an officer?
No. You mean like if you're driving down the road and a police officer
No,
stops you?
if I'm walking down the street.
Oh, yeah, so you don't have to ask for it. If they ask for your identification
Yes,
and you're not being stopped,
yes.
okay, so you're just a mere conversation?
Well, let's put it in the case of a profiling. If I think I'm being profiled and I don't want to submit my license, does policy?
Well, we're kind of getting a little off track, but if you're.
No,
if you're
because I'm relating it to what you
Okay,
would say.
if you're suspected of committing a crime, say jaywalking,
Right.
something like that, bicycle infraction or something like that, and if the officer is going to issue a citation,
Right, I'm not
they have
talking
to have a right to ask you for identification purposes.
If profiling is going on and an officer wants to know who's on the street, who's doing what, so they can get a history, and I say I prefer not to present my license, does Oregon or Portland
Yeah, well, we can't profile. So if they're doing something like that, you don't have to necessarily show your driver's license for
Okay,
that.
then the person who's in the position of being recorded on the camera should have the same option.
So you're saying that person has the option, if I walk up to you, they should have the right to ask the officer to shut off the camera?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And you're talking on a street encounter, not just in a house?
Well, I think I'm talking about it, in a house too.
Okay.
If the person owns that house, pays the rent, is someone who is supposed to be there, I think they have the right to say, no, I prefer
I'll
not.
let that out for both.
And then here's some more sensitive ones. Like where we're talking about a sexual assault victim who's being interviewed. So I heard it off here, we're interviewing a sexual assault victim. Anybody else? What's the question? The question is if an officer is interviewing a sexual assault victim, should the camera be on while I'm interviewing that person who was assaulted? Now this gentleman had his hand up first in the back, so go ahead.
Questions, I'm going to bounce back real quick and then I'll
Sure.
answer. So, with a homeowner, say you're a renter and there's a dispute with the apartment owner, does the discretion go to the apartment owner or the renter?
That's a good question. I don't know, because now you're it sounds like you're talking about a civil matter, right?
Possibly, but,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
To the renter.
yeah, they need
So, yeah, that would be a good question. Now, why is the officer in the first place? Are they trying to stop a fight?
Yeah, say there was a fight in progress and, you know, it's sort of happening in this renter's apartment, over rent, and, you know, the landowner says, yes, record, but the rentee says, no, this is my apartment, I'm paying for the privilege of this private space, no. So who has precedence?
Legally, the
That's a good question.
renter has the right of occupancy.
Okay. And I don't have the answer to that. That's a good question for all.
And then the other thing is, so currently you take notes when you're interviewing a sexual assault victim as well as like a child. So how is video recording going to enhance, unless like you miss something or you mishear something, but it seems right now you're taking notes without use of the video.
Yes.
So why change that?
Okay.
So you're saying no, don't record sex assault or
And
child
unless
abuse.
they specifically request it, or the parent of the minor specifically requests it.
He's touching on a double subject here, but in terms of the recording of the sexual assault victim, I don't know specifically or in the law at this time. I do know from having worked with the sexual assault from Berkeley Rape Crisis that we were not able in any way, shape, or form to have any video or taped recording until which time as the person requested it for evidentiary purposes. If that is the case, then officers here should be able to respond to that person's request with the understanding that this is evidentiary material. But it also has to, within that, be capable of being turned off at the point where they say, I'm done. Whatever the point that is. And that's simply the psychiatric standard across the nation for recording of my awareness from the 90s. Things can change, obviously, but that standard for privacy of the individual in that personal case, when it changes to a child, becomes a station where, as an officer, yes, you do have the responsibility of taking a parent's or guardian's authority into the case, but you also have the responsibility to the child regardless of the authority of those people.
And that's actually leading into one of the next one, child abuse, interviewing the child, the camera being on the same situations like that.
Why would you ever turn the camera on for death notification?
Good point, but that was one that was brought up.
For what?
Definitely. So if I go to a person's house to say, hey, your son was just killed in a car accident, should I turn that camera off before I walk up to the door? Absolutely. And who else? Anybody say yes, no? You saying yes or no, sir?
I'm saying that the cameras on all those, the cameras should stay on, but it should not be made available to the public.
Okay, so now this person says the camera just stays on all the time. I didn't understand. What do you think, sir?
I didn't have an opinion on that.
Okay. I don't have an opinion on that one. I mean, I've given death notifications, and I tell you, it's not fun. And the last thing I think is to have this with a little red light beeping in the middle of that. I just don't have the answer to that one. That's a tough one. It is.
I would want the camera off.
So you think the camera should be off and something like that?
What would be the benefit in having it on?
Maybe the person you're interviewing, maybe the person that you're giving that death notice to has something to do with the crime.
Could be. And maybe that's a possibility. I mean, what you say is, it's just cruel. But if we look at both sides of the spectrum, if the camera's on 10 hours of the shift, and the officer didn't have the discretion to turn the camera off at that point in time, he has to film it.
Then
Unless-
wait until you're off shift to notify me that.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you ever go to give a death notification at the same time that you're conducting an investigation?
Well, see, most of the time, no, I've never done that. When I've given death notifications, I'm not doing an investigation. I'm strictly there to give the bad news. That's why I'm there. So,
But conceivably that can happen. We've had abusers who have killed their significant other
Right.
and then reported them missing, and then the body's later discovered by the police and we did that notification. So there's conceivably that could happen. I think it's more rare, but it's definitely a possibility.
So then in that case, like, if you are recording, and could a jury go back, or could a prosecutor go back and add that video footage to evidence against this person, like what is the reaction when you told this person, and notice how body language and this and that.
That's very conceivable. That's one of the things that came out of that ASU study down in Phoenix is that the video of the abuser was substantially used against them because sometimes they were callous or indifferent to someone else's suffering. Meanwhile, the abused victim was crying, they had red marks on their neck, there were tears coming out of their eyes, and they were saying things on camera that even if you captured it in a report, it doesn't look the same as it would look in video. So it's conceivable like it could be used that way.
Yeah, I understand like these situations of victims and the, privacy implications. It's not much of a stretch for me, but I want to be sure that we talk about video that captures a confrontational situation.
Sure.
Between an officer and a member of the public. I want access to that.
Right.
And from what I've heard so far, you're saying like the state law will prevent me from having access to those videos that capture a confrontation?
No, and there's public record laws, and when we discussed that briefly, and we can talk about it in more detail, but yeah, you can have access to
Okay,
the
because
video.
we haven't really talked about it yet. Is that coming up?
Well, I covered it briefly. Yeah, public records law would not allow that to come out. If you made a complaint,
Okay.
it would be IPR or IAD, the Internal Affairs Division, or
So
or
what
police.
is preventing Portland from having a very broad public disclosure policy so that I can have access to them?
Well, I think that there's a lot of folks that would disagree with you, and ACLU of Oregon is one of them.
Well,
they lobbied specifically.
Isn't
they
the
were
point
worried
of a
about
body
privacy.
camera law to have transparency and accountability?
And privacy and transparency intersect. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is defense attorneys also cited and said, well, we don't want these videos to get out there before someone has a chance to be tried by a group of their peers, right?
And I'm not talking about privacy situations like conversations with victims. I'm talking about confrontations between police and a member of the public.
But to the public isn't going to get that, but investigators can get that. And I think the legislature was pretty clear, they didn't want that video to go out. They wanted it to be retained so that it could be investigated if you thought something was done wrong, and that's why they require us to keep it for 180 days. But they don't want it to go out on YouTube. And so they put really tight limitations on releasing that video. And that would not probably meet that public interest unless something happened in that event, then, and it became public interest, it could be released. That's for sure. But most of the time, they're going to err on its privacy, even of the subject involved.
May I?
Yes. I'm sorry.
No, not your fault. Okay, so I just had this horrible thought. Community members have been asking, and groups have been asking for community input. This is the second of 2 meetings you're having right now. Are you gonna say, yes, we've had community input when you're writing this up? Are these 2 meetings covering?
Well, actually, we're hoping to have more people at these meetings.
Okay, so are you hoping to have more meetings after you've drafted things that we can read and then discuss? What I'm saying is, I hope that these 2 meetings are not going to be the 2 meetings.
No, they're not the drivers. There's been other meetings besides this. Also, we've got our website that I'm going to point out at the end where the public can put comments and give us comments. And there's about 93 comments already.
Okay, and there will be more meetings, more public meetings.
I think so, but I
Okay, well, let me be clear then. I would very much like you to have more public meetings.
Okay.
Especially after you have drafted your proposed regulations and have produced a best practices survey so that we can review
Okay.
it.
All right.
Thank you.
So I'm in healthcare, and I imagine, just like I experience a lot of harm things and see a lot of really horrific things that you guys do as well. And you want to see that people are protected and taken care of. However, the thing that I don't understand in putting this all together is that when you're having these on, how does it reinforce the person's right to a fair trial? How does it, as you're turning them on because you're having suspicions of criminal activity, how does that give them a fair trial?
Well, obviously, we're talking about something that's an evidentiary value. And so there's probably a couple of sides of the coin here that we're discussing. One is police accountability, and then you brought up a very good point of the evidence of the video. And as far as that, I mean, we're notifying you when we come up to talk to you that the camera's on, we're videotaping our conversation. So at that point, I suppose it's up to you to make an informed decision what you want to say and what you want to do.
Can I say something? Because this man in violating all our rights of privacy while we're discussing what is the police may or may not in favor of privacy. And I wonder how he can do it and you can't.
This is a public meeting.
forum.
Mm-hmm.
So, and,
This is a public meeting.
So anybody can take pictures anytime.
Yes,
As long as
ma'am.
it's a
But if
public
you want,
meeting.
I can edit out your face if you want me to, I can do that for you.
Well, I have no problem with being
Okay.
filmed except to break your camera. But this is much more than the police filming me, because I don't have any guilty conscience.
Mm-hmm.
So if they film me, wasted film. If they film me dead on the ground, please find the guy who did it. But to have a stranger take my picture with everybody in the world having a smartphone with cameras on.
Personally, I feel lucky to be able to film someone your age and, you know, an elder that I can get advice from in a public forum, and I feel lucky to have you on camera. You're not gonna break it at all. But yeah, the Oregon law says that anybody can film anything they like in a public forum. That's why there's no privacy concerns in this building right now, this second. But yeah, but I don't think you're gonna break it.
Okay, yesterday morning, a police officer hopped out of their vehicle and tried to rob me of my camera. And it happened within 7 seconds. If you have the cameras off or you turn off and on, what stops that from happening again?
well, let's talk about that real quick and fast. All the policies across, and ours I'm sure will have the same thing, is if an officer is required to turn on the camera and fails to do it, they have to answer why they didn't do it. If they turn the camera off in the middle of the situation, the officer's gonna have to answer to that too.
Well, the officer,
Anything else before we go on to the next one?
This comes down to one lady's meetings, comment on further meetings, that as you draft out and as you take the things said tonight, could you please possibly look at having a college symposium where it's open to the public, but also so that the students may start to hear and think about these things from the standpoint of they're either just becoming voters or about to become voters. And you're going to be doing this right coming in on our election season. It would be
Yes, we are.
really great if those young people could have that extra presentation and understanding of what's being said here and how you respond to it.
I'm gonna move on to the next question, and I'll answer like I said, I'll stay here as long as you want, but just to keep this flowing so we can go on to other parts of it, I need to shift gears to the next section, which is video viewing. Oh, I got it this time. So, reviewing the video, basically what I'm talking about there is when and who can look at the video. So, the first one, this is the officer who's wearing his camera, his bird camera. And should they be allowed to view the video? No. Yes, just blanket question, what do you think?
No.
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 Absolutely no.
Got some no's here, anybody?
No.
Why shouldn't they do their filming?
Exactly right.
Because they can corroborate their story to match what's on the film. Where oftentimes when you're writing up a report, you maybe fully don't remember things traumatically that have happened, so you're writing something up, and it says the narrative says one thing, and you go back and look at the video, and it says something else. So if an officer is allowed to look at that video before they write the report, then they can corroborate their whole story to match what's on the video.
But let me qualify this too. I'm not talking about an officer involved shooting here. This is somebody writing a ticket. This is making an arrest for a
No, they should know. It's like anytime you need to write what you say happened, and then you need to be judged on
Okay.
what you said happened, is that where's what happened.
Okay?
A lot of times you can't write a report in the process of going through your job. I'm not a cop, I'm a retired electrician, so I don't have a dog in this fight, but they'll write the report after the fact, and I don't see any problem with using that video to refresh their memory of the situation.
Okay.
I think you see, because if you're picking me explain, don't pick the you. And that's great, because then he has proof, and I have proof.
That question says, should the officer that took the video be allowed to review the footage? I say no, because cops can get away with making up all kinds of stuff and manipulating the legal system through things like qualified immunity and the policeman's bill of rights. Qualified immunity states that if a law is not plainly known by everyone, the cop can claim ignorance and get away with violating your rights. The policeman's bill of rights here in Oregon says that you get 24 hours to make up whatever story you want. Hey, well, 48 hours, thank you. You get 48 hours to make up your story of what actually happened if you're accused of a crime. But if the officer has not the ability, if he's denied the ability to look at the video footage is an objective record, and then his report can be contradicted by the facts no matter what happens. And I think public concern about these body cameras are their accountability feature. I mean, this happened because of Ferguson, Missouri. This is why this happened. This is why this is in public, the public domain. This is why this is a sexy topic for politicians, is people's concern about the police, not the other way around. A lot of these bullet points seem very convenient to give you guys a lot more wiggle room to continue manipulating the legal system, and that's not the point.
Well, the reason why these bullet points are up here is because this is in other police agencies' policies. These are also up here because people are putting these things up.